Hey, welcome to Bible 365. I'm your host, Kathy Carter, and I'm bringing you Acts 27 today. We are so close to the end. Today, we are going to be talking about Paul and his whole team being shipwrecked on the island of Malta. So if you're interested, I want you to stick with me, and I'll see you in a minute. Hey, welcome to Bible 365. I'm your host, Kathy Carter, and this channel is here to kind of merge Bible living with Bible literacy. So, we are going to be using the New Testament this year in order to understand what it's like to live as a follower of Christ. I have a link below in the description that I have a download that will bring you to a chronological Bible reading of the New Testament. So, what I want you to do is read every day and join me and hopefully some friends as we talk about what it means to live as a kingdom builder. Let's get started. Hey, welcome to Bible 365. I'm your host, Kathy Carter, bringing you Acts 27 today. And I did desperately want to do 27 and 28, sort of just to finish the book. But there's just, in my mind, there's just too much going on in Acts 27 that I want to discuss. Some, I think, really important details. Okay, so if you haven't been here before, this is a book of the Acts of the Apostle. This is Luke who is writing it, and he's mostly at this point just heavily focused on everything that Paul is doing. So he is in the midst, because he's with him, right? So he's in the midst of being with Paul, and so he's sort of writing everything down that they're doing. Paul, at this point, has been arrested from Jerusalem, right? He came down to Jerusalem, made an uproar. He didn't. Everyone in the town made an uproar. And so a commander, somehow a little bit for his protection, wound up putting him in jail in order to find out what was going on. Like, why was everybody freaking out? And from there, he's been moved, and he was with Felix and Festus for a while. And then he spoke to King Agrippa, and they were kind of all like, we really can't find anything wrong. Like, we can't really see why everybody's freaking out. Why don't you go back to Jerusalem? And he was like, I'm going to appeal to Caesar. So he didn't want to be tested and tried by Jerusalem. And so right now he's on his way to Caesar. They approved it, and they said he's on his way to Caesar. Well, they send him in the ship. And remember, he's a prisoner. And I want to note this because he is and he isn't, right? Like, they haven't really found any guilt in him, and he's been sitting in different forms of prisons for over 2 years. But he is technically a prisoner. And so it's kind of interesting to me how many freedoms he has as a prisoner. So he goes on this trip, and Luke is with him. So he's not alone. Aristarchus is with him. So he's not alone. So it says, like, he's allowed to have his friends ministering to him. He's not really put off on any kind of private area in the ship. He's allowed to be with other people. So he's been given a lot of freedoms. I think it's because it's Paul. And so they're going, he has been preaching to us. He has been good to the people. He has been possibly, we don't know for sure, but possibly healing, maybe doing wonders, whatever. But we know that, like, all of his friends are there with him. So they're going to Italy. And these are two things that I want to note. It looks like they're fasting. So it's mentioned twice that they're fasting. We don't know why they're fasting. Is everyone on the ship fasting? At one point, they say there's over 200 people on the ship. Is everyone on the ship fasting, or is only the Israelites? Are only the Israelites fasting? Are they fasting because it's the time and season for fasting? Or are they fasting because they're on a ship? Or are they fasting because the Lord asked them to fast? We don't have any of that information. All we know is that they are fasting. And there's a time for fasting, right? Like, there's a certain time for it. And I feel like sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes it's a little bit shorter, depending on what it's for. But there's a specific time for fasting. What we also seem to know is that this boat is going really, really, really slow. It probably had a certain amount of time that it was supposed to be there, and it doesn't seem like it's going to make it there in that time. All kinds of things come up and happen while they're trying to take it to Italy. And so it's like, oh, well, we were going to pull in here, but they didn't have that. And then the wind was pushing us, and they didn't, right? And we rode slowly past this way. So it's taking a lot of time. So now, all of a sudden, it's the time to end the fast, and they're still on the ship. And so they're still fasting because they're still on the ship. There's a limited amount of food, maybe. Maybe the food wasn't for them because they were fasting. So for whatever reason, they're still fasting on the ship. Okay. So it says, verse 10, I'm coming to, because we kind of all got all that other stuff about the things going on the ship. Verse 10 says, Paul says to these guys, so all of this disaster is happening, and Paul says, men, I perceive that this voyage will end with disaster and much loss, not only of the cargo and the ship, but of our lives. So he's noting to these guys, it's not working out the way that we thought it was going to work out. And it doesn't seem like it's going to end well. People are going to lose their lives, and we're going to lose a lot of stuff on this ship. And none of those things are good. There's 200 plus people on there. They're not on this ship only to take Paul to Italy, right? There are other reasons why people would be on this ship. There's some soldiers on this ship. There's a centurion on this ship. There are people, prisoners on this ship, and there are other people on this ship. So there are obviously other reasons why, I'm assuming, right? There are other reasons why this giant ship with 200 and something people would be going to Italy. And it's not just to take Paul there. So he's like, this is going to end badly. But, which I want to say this makes sense, but I want to go two ways. So it says, nevertheless, the centurion was more persuaded by the helmsman and by the owner of the ship than by the things spoken by Paul. Okay. In reality, it seems fair, right? You would go, well, who am I going to trust? Am I going to trust this prisoner? Or am I going to trust the people who have done this a whole bunch of times for their life? In fairness, 99.9 of us would probably say, I'm going to trust the people who do this for their living. But I want to say the take home point here is, who is Paul in relation to the Lord? Now, they may or may not know that. I don't know if he's been performing miracles. I don't know if he's been feeding people. I don't know what he's been doing. But I know, what I do know for a fact, is he has been preaching to anybody that comes in contact with him. I know he was preaching to King Agrippa. I know he was preaching to Festus. I know he was preaching to Felix. So I know that they know he believes that Jesus is a resurrection and that we should be following the law of Christ, right? So this is something that we know. So I think that God is trying to show something here, right? Because naturally, you would follow the guy who understands how to use the machinery. This is miraculous. Dealing with the Lord is supposed to be miraculous. It's not supposed to be your everyday drivel. Not that we shouldn't be doing everyday drivel, right? I go to my job every day. I go to the gym every day. I read my book every day. Like, I do the everyday things, and I try to find the Lord in the everyday things. But these are miraculous situations, right? This is uniquely different. In an everyday situation, yes, I should trust what he said was true. But in a miraculous situation with somebody that is a saint of the Lord, I feel like I need to do the thing that doesn't make sense. And I'm saying that it's so easy for me to say, because here I am 2,000 years later and I get to read about it. But I think that that is what he's trying to show us. He's trying to show us the miraculousness of his people, what he does for his people. So here we go. Paul's like, this is what's going to happen to us, right? I don't want to say he's prophesying it, because it doesn't say he's prophesying it, but he is perceiving it. And so I think that he's recognizing something that nobody else is recognizing. Okay, so it says, but because the harbor isn't suitable to winter in, and because the helmsman and the guys, so like they're looking at the situation and they're going, it's not really conducive to us. Like, nothing's really good about staying here. Obviously, we weren't supposed to stay here, but like when we look around, it's like, it's not really nice to harbor in. The water is rough in this area. We might run aground. There's so many variables. And they're like, you know what? We're going to move on. And so that's what they do. They wind up moving on. Well, when they move on, it says when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their desire, like, yes, good. Now we're going and it's moving along nice and soft and we're making pace. He said, putting out to sea, they sailed close by Crete, but not long after, a tempestuous headwind arose. They're getting shaken up. They're getting shook, crashed, right? Like side to side. If you ever watch those like longshoremen shows where like they go out and they catch all the lobsters and everything, the sea is very, very scary. Like, I don't mind being on a boat in the river. I don't mind being on I love being on a boat, like maybe even a cruise ship, although I'm not a fan, but that, whatever, right? But when you are on these ships and you're out in the middle of the ocean and you're getting rocked back and forth, it's got to be terrifying. People lose their lives all the time on this. You know, go back then when motorized things were a little bit different, right? It wasn't, the electricity and the gas weren't what they are now. And so it's really scary, and it would be really common for people to lose their lives. So it says in verse 20, now when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small tempest beat on us. So we just kept getting beat, 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 beat. All hope that we would be saved was finally given up. This is what I wanted to talk about more than anything else. This is the magical place where the Lord wants you. By the way, not sometimes, but all the time. When we go, I absolutely cannot do this. This is it for me. This is the end of the rope, right? This is the end of the line. I can't do it. I've tried this. I've tried that. I've tried. And notice, like in your life, how often do you make it about you and everything that you have tried? Yeah, well, I tried that. I tried this. I tried that. Are you sitting in prayer and speaking to God, right? Or are you just letting the doctors do their work? I'm not saying doctors shouldn't do their work. Doctors should absolutely do their work. God created science and medicine and all of these wonderful things. God, people should be doing what their gift is, what they're supposed to be doing. But are you in prayer? Are you leaning on the Lord? Are you living this moment as if all hope that you have been saved is gone? All hope that I can do it on my own. All hope that someone's going to come get me. All hope that my friends are going to call. Everything is done. And all I have is the Lord. This is the end to which they had to come because they didn't listen to Paul. Paul said, right? So like we've been warned. And the reason this is so like huge for me is because this is the pattern that has been throughout scripture over and over. If you wonder if there's a pattern, by the way, there's so many patterns, but this is one of them, right? He saves you. He saves. That's it. He saves. You can live a life. Great. Amazing. You can live a really, really, really good life. You can live a life so much better than millions of other Christians. But have you been saved? You have the opportunity. Everyone has the opportunity to be saved. He does not keep it from any single person. I don't care if you're someone who lives in the middle of nowhere. I don't care if you're someone who lives in a family where everyone else has some different faith than you. I don't care if people are ostracizing you. No, every single person has the ability to be saved. I don't care if you're the person who committed atrocities that you can't even name because they're so mortifying and shameful. None of that matters. When all hope is lost, the Lord is the one who saves. This is exactly what's going to happen to these guys. So let's just look and see what's going to happen. Okay. After a long abstinence from food, so they have been fasting, they have not had food. And then Paul stands in the midst of them. And the first thing he does is he rebukes them. He reprimands them. Men, you should have listened to me. So listen, I'm saying this. I just listed the whole entirety of those people who are going to be saved. That does not mean you are not going to be reprimanded or rebuked. That does not mean you should not need to repent. As a matter of fact, you all need to repent. You all need to recognize I fell short of the glory of the Lord, right? I did not do the thing. He offered that thing up to me. This whole ship, Paul offered up to them. Guys, we should stop. Nothing's going well here. We should take a break. And they all said, nope. And now they should all be in repentance about it because the Lord gave that to them and they turned it down. They passed it up. And now they're in a place that's dangerous. And he says, so he stands in the midst and he says, you should have listened to me and not have sailed from Crete and incurred this disaster and loss. Now I urge you to take heart. So you should have listened to me. You didn't. You're sorry. Now I urge you, and they should say that, not that I'm saying he said that. Now they should take heart because there's going to be no life among you. Now I am making a promise to you. Can you I hope you guys see the picture in this. So he's like, you didn't listen. But I'm telling you now, this is my promise to you. And this is Paul promising, and you're going to see why Paul promises this. So Paul, I want to call him a Messiah. He is not the Messiah, but I want to call him a Messiah because, again, I'm going to tell you, Messiahs are all throughout Scripture. They're not the Lord, but they're given power through the Lord. And that's what we're going to see here. So he said, there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. So something's got to go. The payment is the ship. Not you, not your life, but there is a payment that needs to be made. Because there stood by me this night an angel of God to whom I belong and whom I serve, saying, don't be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar, and indeed, God has granted you all those who sail with you. So here he goes. He got the message. God was like, I am going to save everybody with you because I want you to be in Rome. And so every single person on that boat gets life because I'm protecting you and sending you to Rome. So Paul is telling them these things and saving, but is the angel of the Lord who delivered the message, and it is the Lord who is going to be doing the saving. Remember this always. The Lord, you make a choice. He offers and says, hey, here it is. Here's your gift. Listen to me. You say, I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it. And by the way, you should see some of the stuff that they do after this. I'm going to do it or not going to do it. And he says, here is the promise I make to you. This is what I'm going to give you. Okay, but they're going to lose the ship. There's going to be a payment that's made. Now, when the 14th night had come and we were driven up and down the Adriatic Sea, about midnight, the sailors sensed that they were drawing near some land. Okay, so they're like, great, here we go. We're drawing near some land. So the sailors are really smart. They start dropping anchors. But here's the issue. The issue is God said this ship has to run aground. If they're dropping anchors, they're not listening to what the Lord said, because the Lord said it had to run aground. You're going to lose the ship. The ship is the payment. It is what it is. Drop anchors all day. You're just wasting your time, right? You're just like, in some ways, you are cutting off your nose to spite your face, right? You keep going, oh, I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to do it on my own. And you keep making all of these mistakes instead of just giving it and handing it over to the Lord. Surrender it to God. It's not going to turn out like he's not Santa, right? Like he's not, you're like, oh, all my hopes and wishes, and I want all of them to come true. And Santa grants those hopes and wishes. He's also not a demon where you're like, oh, I hope for this. And he's going to give you a snake and he's going to turn around the gift. He's going to give you what he deems you need to draw closer to him. That's the gift. That's the promise. That's the desire. Even from him, that's his desire for us. Okay, so they keep dropping anchors. Verse 29, then fearing lest we should run aground on the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for day to come. So like, oh, I'm afraid we're going to run aground. That's what you were told was going to happen. You shouldn't be afraid of it because it's happening. Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, unless these men stay in the ship, you cannot be saved. So people were trying to run away. And he said, the promise was that I was going to save all of you, but we all need to stay and we need to do the things that the Lord told us that we need to do. So if you're following, after you are in this covenant with the Lord, right? I made you a promise. You agreed. This sounds great. I love this. There's more work to do. And he said, stay in the ship. You're going to run aground and you're going to lose the ship. And they were like, I don't want to do that. These are the things that we have to do with the promise. We don't know best. And we keep falling on this. If you live in this era, and probably every era was this way, I don't want to take it and be like, oh, we're so stupid. But if you live in this era, in this day and age, you probably have heard or possibly believe that we are the smartest people that ever lived on this earth. Can you believe those people thought the world was flat? Can you believe those people didn't get a spaceship up into the moon? Can you believe that they, right? Like can you believe that they believe that in science? Can you believe they use leeches? Can you believe that they drain people? Like all of these things, because we're so brilliant. And the reality is we're just living in our time with the information that we have. And they were just living in their time with the information that they had. And sometimes we're right and sometimes we're wrong. We're not always right. We're not smarter than the generation before us. We're just a little bit different. We're using things slightly differently. So now Paul follows up in verse 33. And as day was about to dawn, Paul implored them all to take food. I'm going to bring this to another picture too. So everyone's now on the ship, right? They wouldn't let the people run away. Everybody's on the ship. And he's like, okay, now we all need to take food. We need to take sustenance because we are all going to survive, right? Like we're not going to die. So we need to take sustenance because we're going to be put on this island. And everything needed to kind of come off of the ship, which again, we're going to see in just a second. So he said, we need to take food because not a hair on anyone's head is going to be lost. No one here is going to die. This reminds me of when they were sitting at the table, right? The 12, and he was feeding them all food, right? So this is manna. This is just what you need. I'm giving you what you need in order to do the thing that you need to do, right? And I'm giving you just enough, not too much, not too little. You're not starving, but you're not swelled up with food. Because after it said they threw everything off of the ship because the ship needed to be emptied because the ship was going to be a loss. So they threw everything off the ship, but it said in all, there were 276 people on the ship. So when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and threw out the wheat into the sea. When it was day, they didn't recognize the land, but they observed a bay with a beach. And so they look on this, they see this little island. And so it says that the ship, they once again, they kept trying not to run aground, like go this way, go this way, go that way. And inevitably, the ship wound up running aground, which again means it's a total loss. If they try and drop anchor somewhere or they try and go on the sandy shore, they could push it out when the tide gets higher, right? There are so many other alternatives that they could have where the ship wouldn't be a loss, but a payment needed to be made. And maybe I'm reading into it, but I feel like it's so obvious when I look at it. A payment needed to be made, and the ship was the payment. Now they are stuck on this island. They are no longer in power of themselves, but they're stuck on this island. It said the soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim away and escape. But the centurion wanted to help Paul, and because he wanted to help Paul, and like we heard all of this stuff that happened, and still they didn't believe. They still were like, let's just kill these guys. They're not really worth it for us. So again, going with an image of some are going to believe. You can pick it up and you can put it right in front of them. Here it is. Here's your promise. Here it is. Look at it. Look at it. Like it's shining. It's gold. It's so pretty. You put it on your finger. You have it forever and ever and ever. And they go, no, no, I don't need that. I already have other baubles that I'm good with, and I don't need that one. There will be people who turn it away. There will be people that I don't know if they're cynical. I don't know if they choose to be blind. I don't know if they're hostile for some reason. I don't know if they've been hurt, but whatever it might be, they choose not to believe and not to listen. And these guys were some of them. The soldiers were like, let's go kill these guys. Yeah, I know Paul said all these things, and I know all of the things that he said were going to come true, but I'm mad. The ship ran aground, and I want to kill these people, it said, lest any of them should swim away and escape. They were more worried. They're on this tiny little island, and they're more worried about these prisoners escaping than all of them coming together and maybe building camp together. Again, I'm going to say I want to be fair, right? I try and show like both sides of it. If the prisoners escaped, they might lose their lives. And that's big, right? Like that's a big deal. Like if they come back and they go, oh well, we lost the ship, and all of the prisoners escaped, and they would likely lose their jobs at the very least, but more likely they would lose their jobs and possibly lose their lives. So there again, here we go with there is a payment to be made. It's not always the easiest choice. We need to make the right choice, not the easy choice. And I always feel like when I say these things, like that, I always make the right choice. And I don't. There are times where I make the easy choice, right? And I need to be very repentant of the fact that I have made the easy choice when I saw what God put in front of me and I saw what he did. He just did in my own personal life. He just did this amazing miracle. And I was like, me, did he? Right? Like, because and then I kept looping in my head, and that messes with my future faith, right? Like if I loop in my head these things, then I forget that he did these miracles. And so, if you are around and about a miracle, if a miracle has happened in your life, write it down so you remember it, so you don't do these things and turn away from the Lord at the easiest second, right? Or when things look tough for you, you go, you know what? I'm just going to do it on my own. I'm going to do the thing that's going to boost me up, right? I'm not going to worry about my fellow man. I'm not going to worry about loving on other people, but I'm going to worry about my own job and my own protection. So he says, but the centurion, wanting to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that those who could swim should jump over first, and the rest, some on boards and some on parts of the ship. And so it was all that they all escaped and wound up safely coming to land. So the centurion intervened. The centurion, I'm thinking at this point, had enough interaction with Paul that he understood that something bigger was on board. And maybe we're going to find out something about him, and maybe we won't, but we have one chapter left until the end of Acts. So if you have found this to be a blessing, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.